Okay, so good evening, brethren. Today we have a lot of visitors as well. It's always great to have visitors. And today is actually the first virtual meeting after I took mastership. And I feel very happy that we have a great topic to discuss today. And as I had discussed during my installation meeting, we will be continuing this virtual meeting as well, along with the regular meetings. So the third Saturday of every month will be a virtual meeting, during which time we will have meetings for some of the meetings will be for the Lord's Brethren, some of them will be for all Masons, and some of them we are even planning to open for non-Masons. The objective is to reach out to a larger audience, and also create awareness about masonry in general. Okay. So we are planning multiple activities, and the first session, as I have told, is by very worshipful brother uh, Venkat Raman, on and on a very special topic today. The interesting part of it is, there are many positions in masonry, um, and many a times what happens is this becomes just a title, and people don't really play the role that they are assigned for. So in the last PC meeting also, we had this discussion: how can we create awareness about the roles so that everyone is very clear of the expectations, what roles they're supposed to play. Okay. With respect to the respective titles they have received, with respect to the respective roles that they have received during the installation ceremony. So I'm very happy to welcome you all to this particular session, and also very worshipful brother Venkat Raman. So I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about, and after that we'll also have a discussion, and we'll like to have the point of views of everyone on this, and probably we can take it like that. So over to you, brother Venkat Raman.
Thank you very much, John. Thanks a lot, Vashul Master. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, and thank you everybody for taking your time out on this part of the day and spending that with us at Lord Silverton. The purpose of this talk, as was said in the flyer that went out, is to see that how can we apply the principles of organization and management, and how can we make the lodge grow. If this was a business, and I use the term business in a very broad sense, and there was a mission to the lodge, which is to make good men better, which is what Masonry's one-point agenda is, then how does the lodge go about achieving that? And how do we make the lodge more vibrant, meet all expectations? How does the lodge grow, prosper, and maybe one day have 900 brethren in its roles? Yeah, there's most lodges. So coming back, I understand that the audience here is going to be very widespread. There will be brethren from lodges which are hardly like 10, 20, 30 in the low, which is the average size for most lodges all over the United Grand Lodge of England. And then there'll be lodges with 50 plus or 100 plus, and then there'll be a few that are in the high 3 digits like 900. So what might apply to one might not necessarily apply to the other, and the individual circumstances will always vary. But by and large, the principles of organization and management do not change. And we are now looking at a lodge from an O&M organization management perspective. Let me pull up the presentation and let me get started. Okay. Can you all see my presentation? But then can you see my presentation?
Yes, brother.
Yes,
okay, fine.
Okay.
Great. So that's the topic, an organization and management perspective on taking your loss to the next level. So we are wearing the hats of a small entrepreneur, and we are examining what it takes to take this body and take it to the next level, how to make it grow. Yeah, close the door. So okay, so these are the contents. a little bit of what I call fair disclosure, the background about what led me to start this presentation, the organization structure of the lodge, and what is how does it really look? A little bit of the roles and responsibilities. This is not intended to be a complete job description of every role, but a very high level view of what those roles are. What are the management challenges? Something about our own home lodge, the Siluri Dawn, and how we came out of a rather difficult situation at some stage in our lives.
Brother Venkatraman,
Yeah.
we are losing you in between. Maybe
What's
you want
that,
to
sir?
connect with your mobile also.
Okay. Okay. I hope it is slightly better now. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah, looks like, yeah.
Okay. So,
Yes, we are able to hear you. Brother.
okay, good. Thank you. The how to put the past masters at work. Many issues that arise out of this entire situation, and then how to ignite the core. How to set the lodge back on flame. Okay, so to speak. So fair disclosure, these are my own views. They're very personal in nature. They do not represent, uh, the lodge or the district or the Grand Lodge or any Masonic body. To a certain extent, this is my own talk is limited by my own limited vision to my geographic reach. Okay. Largely, we'll be talking about the jurisdiction of the United Grand Lodge of England and the emulation ritual. The intention is never to breach any of the established landmarks of the order. If I mention some cases, it doesn't mean that I'm referring to any particular individual or any incident. And lastly, actual mileage may vary. Every lodge may draw something that value may be different for each lodge and each participant here. So a quick primer, what is organization and management?
We are losing your audio, brother. In between.
Okay. I hope it becomes all right. 1 minute.
We can't hear you.
Brother Venkat, we can't hear you. Brother Venkat?
Yeah.
We are not able to hear you. Are you speaking something?
No, I'm playing a video. Are you able to see the video?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So that was a little bit very quick primer on organization management and how it has to change based on the culture and organization to organization. Many of us think that okay, let me give the background. This background came because one of our brother Vishwamohan, he made a
Brother Venkat, again, we are not able to hear you. I suggest you keep your video off. Probably
okay.
your audio will be better.
Is it better now? I kept my video off. I stopped my video. My video is off. Can you hear? Okay, is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah, I hope it just stays. I'm sorry about this. I'm staying in the Marriott. I thought I would have good Wi-Fi, but it's not so. So you know, this came out of a talk by Vishwamohan about how to make lodge evenings more enjoyable, and I felt we need to go from that wish list definition and wish list which he made into how we can make it actionable. So this talk is kind of a sequel to that talk, and it's more at an actionable level. This talk seeks to provide the answers, but it cannot provide all the answers. It assumes the belief that the principles of organization management apply to all organizations, whether they are for profit or not for profit. Peter Drucker, management guru, wrote a book, management for non-profits about 40 years back. So this knowledge is not something new that I'm saying. Okay, most lodges don't do well because these principles are not very well understood, and many of them are trapped in what I call as a dominant personality management culture. Generally, there is one person, secretary, DOC, or maybe somebody who's like the senior most brother, but he kind of dominates the culture of the lodge, and then the lodge does well or bad depending upon that person's personality and culture. So this is a background. So we need to break away from that and de-risk the lodges. And how can we go about doing that? Okay. Again, coming back to the background, most lodges, Freemasonry by and large, and most lodges shun the language of organization and management. They think that, oh, this doesn't apply to us and we are above board, and it doesn't matter, and they think that we cannot talk the language of business. But let us go back in the last about 15 or 18 years, what all United Grand Lodge of England has done in trying to change the culture of the organization. First of all, about 15 years back, it initiated something called the Strategic Working Group, and out of the Strategic Working Group came the mentoring scheme. For the first time, we had something that was like a process flow for how to get new brethren and how to mentor them. The charities were all merged to make them unified. There were 4 charities, they all bought into one charity. There was a director of PR, press relations, and many eyebrows went up about, how can you do PR? You don't need to do PR in Freemasonry. But they did that about 10, 12 years back. There is a new strategy group that laid out the strategy for 2015 to 2020. So that group, came out. They came out with a pathway scheme, which again has been rolled out across the complete UGLA and across the districts. The Grand Secretary and a new office of the Grand Chancellor was created, and the Grand Chancellor is now called Membership Services, and they again made a change. We have social media head now, and lastly, the Grand Secretary is now called a CEO. He's not called a Grand Secretary anymore. So these are the kind of changes that has been happening in London, Great Queen Street, and and it should percolate down. They have been making all the right things. You can't expect a Grand Lodge to do more than this, but they've been doing things at a very rapid pace for an organization of this legacy and background. So this is the organizational structure of a lodge, which I am redefining. Okay, so there is a Vasual master, and I call them technical specialists only because if it were a hospital or an automobile engineering workshop, there would be people who know the technology of what it takes to deliver. And this entire line, Tyler, inner guard, junior deacons, wardens, director of ceremonies, and then the Vasual master, the principal officers and the assistant officers, as we call them, the ceremonial officers, as they are often called, are all part of the process to make good men better. I mean, the ritual working, the opening, the closing, that reinforces every time how to become a better person. So that is the technical aspect of what we are supposed to deliver, which is to make good men better. The other side is the administrative and support structure that supports the technical specialist. There is, of course, the secretary, there is the treasurer, and I put modern designations, modern management designations. And then there is a charity steward, almoner, mentor, orator, membership officer, who are all support functions to the lodge. I have marked some of them in gray to only indicate that the darker the shade of gray, it means that those officers often, and I'm saying often, it is not always, do not work well, and they do not contribute as much to the management of the lodge. So this is really the kind of organization structure that, as I see it, if there was a modern organization, this would be the organization chart, and this is how it would look. And this would be the new designations of the Vasual master, the director of ceremony, secretary, etc. Now, roles and responsibilities. What are these people supposed to do? Okay, the director of ceremonies he has to ensure that the ritual workings are perfect. He has to deliver the technology to re-engineer, as I call it, which means that
when you got to the interesting part.
Correct.
Venkat, you've gone on mute again.
Am I okay now? Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, better now. Please come again.
Yeah. So the what are the roles and responsibilities? I mean, the director of ceremony is supposed to ensure that the ritual workings are perfect. So in a way, he is responsible to deliver the technology to re-engineer. How do good men become better? By doing the rituals. That's our protocol. That's our workflow to make good men better and deliver the services for which brethren come to the lodge, which is to become better in one way or the other. So the director of ceremonies is in charge of ensuring that the ritual workings are perfect. Other technical services, that is the wardens, the deacons, the inner guard, they all have their roles that come from the day ritual working. We'll not go into the rituals, but the Vasual master keeps asking them every time, Brother Junior Warden, your constant place in the lodge, and why are you placed there? And then they reply. So they're reminded of what their, this is. There's a little bit of induction training that happens when they are being invested. The Vasual master tells them, your place is here and you have to assist me, and I place in your hand this gable, and all that kind of things happen. So there is some kind of an induction training when it's being invested. And he also reminds them each time the lodge is open and closed. Secretary, he's the head of operations. He ensures statutory compliances, files the returns with the district or provinces. He ensures that everything happens smoothly. He is like the COO, whereas the Vasual master is the CEO. The Vasual master lays down the vision, the growth, the high level deliverables for the year, and the secretary ensures that they get delivered. The treasurer, of course, does a record keeping most of the time. He does a little bit of what we would call as ARAP, that is accounts receivable, accounts payable. But in most lodges, there is very little forward-looking forecasting, very little treasury management. I mean, there may be lodges which have a lot of money and therefore do treasury management, but in most lodges, it's just year to year, very small budget, not a very significant role. The charity steward, he has to raise charities, set goals, execute charity projects, both internal and external, alliance with the district, charity steward, ensure that there is a charity program and the money is raised and the charity gets done. Almoner, he reaches out to the internal stakeholders who may need help. So he's more of a welfare officer. He ensures that people are sick, widows who are need help, and it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about reaching out, just asking, inquiring about their welfare, being what would be kind of a welfare officer for the lodge. The mentor is in charge of induction and training, manages the interaction life cycle, especially during the growth stage. So as the brethren are coming and getting into the offices and growing into the lodge and going towards the Eastern chair, the mentor has got a series of documents which helps him to manage the interaction life cycle of each of the members. The orator is supposed to deliver oration, continuing education for all. And lastly, we have the membership officer whose role is to recruit and retain, which would be called HR functions. Recruit good candidates, retain the good candidates. That's what the membership officer is supposed to do. So these are by and large the roles and responsibility. I just put one bullet point. There are books available about what you should do, how you should do, and what is a good officer, and how to discharge. But that would be too much for a meeting like this. One more video, two more videos. We talk about organizational culture, and we look at 2 videos to see what is it and how to build a high performance culture.
Whether the audio is not very audible actually.
The audio is not there.
Brother Venkat, maybe you can read out or Worshipful Master, you're the co-host.
Yeah. I was trying to call Brother Venkat.
Yeah, I went into another network, okay, into my Tapka network.
Brother Venkat,
I'm back.
Brother
Okay.
Venkat, are you comfortable with your network now?
Yeah, I changed my network. Yeah.
No, because it's very interesting and we keep losing you in the middle. So
I'm
maybe
sorry
if you
about
want, we can take a 5 or 10-minute break and you can call the technical staff at the hotel and get something worked out. Will that work for you? Worshipful Master, if that is okay by you.
Let's check whether it is working now.
If
So, Brother Venkat, you may start talking, then we'll tell
then
you
I'll change the
whether
network
we are
and
able
come
to
back.
hear
Give
you
me
or not.
5 minutes, okay? Shall I start?
Okay,
again?
great. So we'll take a small break in that case.
So we return back in 5 minutes, right?
Okay.
No, we'll remain. We'll remain. We'll
1
have
minute.
a small meanwhile.
A little late.
I see you still haven't changed your glasses.
I can't afford a new pair at this moment.
Okay.
I'll have to do I'll have to do away with
network now. Can you hear me?
Hmm?
Hello, Brethren, can you hear?
We can. Actually.
Yes, now we can.
We can hear you.
I have gone
we
from
can hear
Airtel
you.
to Vodafone. I put it on my other network. I'm sorry about this, brother.
Yeah.
The four levels of organizational culture.
Can you hear the voice now?
Organizational culture is a system of shared values, norms, and assumptions.
We can hear, but it's not very, very clear. But okay.
no.
To their environment,
Which voice is
usually taken for granted by organizational members and are taught to new members as they're socialized into the group. An organization's culture is reflected in how work gets done and how employees interact with each other. It takes a long time for a culture to evolve and a long time to change it. When culture supports business strategy, the firm can become performing. Trust is the foundation of culture and is earned through repeated iterations over time. When a positive culture becomes strong enough, employee interactions become more efficient, relationships improve, and employees cooperate.
Brother Venkat can't understand anything.
Towards business strategy, the firm can become high performing. Common organizational culture themes include ethics, innovation, being casual or formal, and collaboration. Of course, as important as it is to create and maintain the right culture, doing so is not necessarily easy. Cultures are made up of formal and informal practices, artifacts.
That's it. Leave it there.
Norms and assumptions. Artifacts are the physical manifestations of the culture, including the myths and stories told about the organization or its founder, awards, ceremonies and rituals, decorations, office space allocations, the dress code, and so on. Assigned values and norms are those that are explicitly stated by the organization. Accepted values and norms are those that employees exhibit based on their observations of what actually goes on in the organization. If a company's top managers engage in illegal or unethical behavior, these are active values and norms of the firm, no matter what its formally stated values or ethics are. If a company has the espoused values and ethics are important, the difference between the espoused values and the enacted creates a gap that can negatively affect employee attitudes and company performance. Performance management, feedback, and compensation assistance will help align espoused values and enacted norms. Organizational values that have become so taken for granted over time that they become the core of the company's culture. These basic assumptions are highly resistant to change and guide organizational behavior. This figure illustrates the four levels of culture. Organizational culture has four levels: artifacts, assumptions, espoused values, and enacted values. Organizational culture is the key to organizational excellence, and the function of leadership is the creation and management of culture.
Brethren, could you all hear the audio at all?
No, very little.
Yeah, actually, we could hear, but it was not very clear. But I think it was the same thing that was written was read out, so it was okay.
Correct. It was more or less the same. Correct.
It was better. It was better.
Yeah, more or less it was same.
Brother Venkat, what you can do is alongside the talk, you can continue to read out from the slides. So it's easier for everybody to understand what's happening.
Okay. Okay. So we see the last video.
Please go on.
Yeah.
In this video, we want to provide you
of the servant leader model, and specifically how this model, when implemented, leads to a high-performance culture. But what's so important about an organization's culture anyway? Why should leaders even care or pay attention to culture? In order to understand the answer to that question, let's start with the end. Every leader wants their organization to be successful, and there are many definitions of success. For some, it's about creating great products or serving customers well. For others, it's about growth and profitability. And for others still, it's about bringing healing, peace, and beauty to a world that desperately needs it. Whatever your organization's definition of success, it's the leader's responsibility to achieve it. And of course, that begins with strategy. Strategy is a word that defines how an organization will achieve success, but your ability to execute on your strategy is dependent on your organization's culture. A positive and flourishing culture enables strategy to be executed, while a negative or unhealthy culture torpedoes or undermines strategy. This connection between culture, strategy, and success is well documented in research and practice, and can be summarized by a common phrase: culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's a quote commonly attributed to Peter Drucker, one of the top management gurus of the 20th century. In other words, if you care about the success of your organization, you need to care about culture. Leaders often put together great strategies, and they often assemble great teams to execute on those strategies, but they still come up short. And that is often because they haven't created the right environment or high-performance culture to enable success. So what is a high-performance culture? Through work with leaders and organizations around the world, we've identified 6 characteristics that define a high-performance culture. Number 1, everyone understands why their work matters. People only give 100% of themselves, their creativity, their motivation, their focus, when they are able to connect their day-to-day activities with the purpose of the organization, something they know will make the world a better place. Number 2, values are practiced throughout the organization. Identifying values and holding people accountable to them creates an environment of trust and alignment around priorities. This, in turn, allows the organization to move with greater speed towards achieving its purpose. Number 3, all activities provide real value to the customer. Organizations with a high-performance culture prevent and remove wasteful tasks that take away from fulfilling a central component of their mission, which is to serve the customer well. Number 4, people's roles match up with their passion and capabilities. It takes time to understand people's design, both what they're good at and what they love to do. When this is done intentionally and in alignment with the organization's purpose, teams become dramatically more creative and productive. Number 5, teams grow and flourish without dependency on individual leaders. Leaders are intentional about delegating both responsibility and authority, so their teams are empowered to make decisions in alignment with their organization's mission, vision, and values. And finally, number 6, bottom line results and goals are achieved. Building a great culture is not mutually exclusive with growth and profitability. Instead, they are natural consequences. Bottom line, when leaders build a high-performance culture, they're creating a foundation that will enable success. So now that we know what a high-performance culture is, how do we create it? Leadership is the key. You won't get the culture you need without high-performance leaders. But this doesn't happen by accident. They must be developed. And that's where Dr. John Stallworth and the servant leader model. The servant leader model creates high-performing leaders that, in turn, create high-performance cultures. There are 2 parts to the servant leader model: the servant leader compass and the 5 actions. The servant leader compass defines where the organization is going. It helps leaders answer 4 fundamental questions required to describe the organization's definition of success. Then, the 5 actions show your leadership team how to get there. The 5 actions are a result of years of research by Dr. John Stallworth working with Morgan.
I'm just stopping it here because this is kind of now cell. Okay. So coming back, so those are the two videos we saw. What is organizational culture and how to build a high performance culture. There were 6 factors that came out. And in the earlier video, they gave us 4 organizational values or culture values, 4 components, 4 types of culture. And here how to build a high performance. So it may apply, it may not apply, but all organizations have to go through this. Okay, so now I'm kind of redrawing the traditional, typical organizational structure in most lodges that I know of. There is a virtual master. Can you all hear me? Bimal, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, yes, very clearly.
Okay, thank you. So there is the, I'm redrawing, I'm revising the organizational structure. There's a virtual master, but he comes every year and he goes away. Typically, the director of ceremonies is there all the time. The secretary is often an old bandicoot in the lodge and somebody this. So the virtual master, who the CEO, is actually dominated by the CTO and the COO. And I can almost see in every lodge the virtual master looks at the left and looks at the right, and then he knocks the gavel because he seeks permission in everything that he does from either of them, because he's there only 1 year. He doesn't want to trip and do anything wrong. So the virtual master is not really able to establish the leadership that he needs to establish. He's not able to direct. He's not even able to do that within his own technical services team, which directly are under him. And in most lodges, the admin support, secretary, almoner, charity steward, mentor, are there somewhere, but they don't have a pathway, or they don't have the dotted lines of responsibility that lead to the virtual master. And that really is the crux of the problem. That is why most lodges do not deliver what they are intended to deliver. They kind of open the lodge, they do good ritual working, they pat each other on the back, they go down and take wine and they raise toast, but that's just about it. It's not like fully fleshed out organization that is envisaged in the book of constitution, that is envisaged in the structure of UGLE. So what are the challenges? Why does this happen? I mean, what can we do? Why we have a certain culture. How does this culture come about? The first is that in all the conversation, there is a dominance of the technical growth path. Almost always, as soon as a candidate is initiated, the conversation is around, oh, when will he become a Tyler? When will he become an inner guard? And next year who will be the junior deacon? And about 60 to 70% of the discussion that happens within a lodge is around the growth path. Next year will be the warden, so you better brush up. All these kind of things. So most of the conversations are around there. For the admin roles, there is no conversation, there is no measurement, there is no evaluation. So if you don't talk about it, how will that role do well? I mean, if you don't talk about security in your organization, how will security do well? Because security will not receive the attention, and then nobody talks about it. Okay. So there is no time. The problem happens is because in the typical lodge evening that we have most of the time, there is no time for conversations around the support structure. You have an agenda that is focused on technical delivery. There's a little bit of admin, reading the minutes, some 3 risings, etc. But in the 3 rising, nobody wants to delay you because you are getting delayed for the festive banquet. and there is no conversation, there is no structure in the normal lodge to have conversations around the support functions, and which is a very serious lacuna in the way the lodges conduct themselves. The virtual master again has a very short tenure. Most of the time, Freemasonry district, usually to district to the lodge is like a top-down broadcast style. There's nothing like a town hall meeting. I mean, there's a lot of changes coming. Okay, I'm saying this generally. The CEO or the Grand Secretary now has Ask Me Anything Tuesdays on Twitter. So anybody can tweet any question and ask him. And various district grand masters have tried to meet younger brethren, seek their opinion, etc. But by and large, the culture is, circulars come from head office, circulars come from, the province or the district, and then they just get read out. Okay, so that's a very dominant part of the culture. There's also a lot of focus of form over the function. So how it should be done is more important than whether it really delivers the value or not. So as long as you've done it correctly, nobody cares whether it really met the purpose of getting it done. So there's a lot of form being stressed over the function. And we looked at the culture, 4 aspects of culture. Our culture is very, very artifact dominant. History, founder, dress code, all the implements that we use. So all this very artifact dominant. Espoused values are sometimes not enacted. We have rituals that tell a lot about what are our espoused values. We say distinguishing characteristic of a Freemason's heart, enforce them to practice outside the law, those excellent principles they have been taught inside it. All these are espoused values, but how much of that gets enacted? Okay. And lastly, there's a lot of assumptions. I mean, every lodge, everybody knows how Freemasonry works. So you might issue a circular, you might have a first rising coming out every month, you might have a Masonic quarterly, but the underlying culture remains the same. And largely, we have a talent pool that just surfaces, and we take it. They are not really the talent pool that are required for the support services that make the lodge more enjoyable. What did we do in Silvery Dawn? How did we, to some extent, come out of it? We were a lodge that was at risk. We had very less brethren. We had very senior brethren. We decided consciously about 10 years back, 10, 12 years back, to become a European concept or a Vitruvian lodge, as they are called. We recognized that brethren come for an evening of experience. We said that the ritual working has to be of the highest order. The festive banquet has to be of an exceptional quality. We recognize that such quality must be paid for, and therefore we will be willing to pay for it. We also recognize that brethren must not be advanced unless they are proficient at each level. Don't just give them automatic ranks every year just because they want more year. And lastly, because of all this, we kind of only strengthen the technical services core, and we became good, and we have got a lot of candidates and coming, and retention is very high, etc. Just imagine what will happen to this lodge if the administration and support services are also equally strong. So the lodge is just kind of escape velocity and go into a different orbit from an organization point of view. How do we put the past masters at work? Past masters, they come up to there. The entire talk is about how to grow on the technical path. After that, after they become the IPM, they become the Tyler, and then there is no other work for them. So they are given offices, but nobody asks them what they're doing in those offices, and then they're lost. Okay, they come sometimes, they don't come sometimes, and it's a very casual approach once you've gone off the Eastern chair. Many of them drop off because the technical growth path is gone. Some go to the chapter, some go into side degrees, but the lodge loses them. And the support services are not seen as exciting because they never discussed about. What do we do with the time squeeze? There is a time squeeze. You got to accept that you can't have a lodge meeting that is like 5 hours long. We need to wrap it up in 3 hours. Beyond that, it becomes too tiring for everybody. So one of the best things that has happened in this pandemic is that we are all comfortable with digital working, with a digital video meetings like this. So my suggestion would be that move the support functions to a separate meeting, so that that meeting can be all business, and we can do all the technical services within the temple. Establish the value of what the support services are, mentor, almoner, whatever they are, and give them in-depth training, of course. And lastly, establish measurement metrics and reporting. So how do you measure that almoner did good work, or they can be soft factors, hard factors, quantitative metrics, qualitative metrics, and how to report. How do they come back and report? Yes, you can bring them on the agenda, almoner's report, mentor's report, membership officer's report. But do you want that? Do you want it in a separate meeting? I mean, that's all for every lodge to decide. Studies have been done, and studies say that it takes about up to 8 years in a very aggressive organization to change culture. So when the public sector units were being denationalized and privatized, they did a study and they said it will take up to 8 years to remove the culture when there is serious training, retraining, and all the things that need to go to that. Question is that as the core of the lodge become apathetic? Is there a loss of appetite for growth? Have they gone beyond, and are they too calcified? Okay. Is there a breakdown due to unfulfilled expectation? This is there in many lodges. You have your grumbly old people. And lastly, do we have the right man for the right job? Because after all, it's also an HR issue. I mean, you may be having you just take somebody and put him as a chaplain, or take somebody and put him as a charity steward. And the man by psychological profile cannot go and ask for money. He doesn't have it in him to, collar people and ask them for money. And then he's a wrong fit for the charity steward. So do we have the right talent pool for the support function? Again, last slide for this, igniting the core. The path can be different. Different lodges will have to take this differently. This is a very high level recommendation. Convene a meeting of the faithful few. Agree on a path to reignite. Do a 5-year high level plan. Establish very high standards of ritual working. That's not negotiable in my school of opinion. Make every evening interesting. Let brethren look forward to coming. Establish forward-looking metrics across functions. So, what will be the charity this year? How much charity will be raised next year? What will the mentor do? What papers will we read, etc. And this kind of web series that we are having in the lodge is a oration function that we are doing. And lastly, as always in any initiative, if you don't track it, if you don't monitor it, you are not going to go anywhere. Thank you, brother. Ocean Master, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Brother Venkat. And it was a wonderful presentation, and I'm so happy that we could do this as the first of the virtual series, because you have raised some very pertinent questions, and which I always wanted to discuss. And the way that you have put it together by drawing parallels between modern management functions and the different positions that we have in the lodge, that was wonderful, because we were able to understand the difference between the technical functions and the administrative functions very clearly, and what is working, what is not working. Okay. And some of the quotes that you have put it together, I heard it before. So actually, it made me think. For example, this one, "Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast" by Peter Drucker. And I think that is very, very relevant when it comes to a lodge. It is a fact. Many a times, what happens is, this is how we've been following for many, many years altogether. Now, how will we suddenly change it? Okay, these are the key roles in the lodge, and these are some of the roles. I mean, some of the roles that is just assigned to people, and they don't have to do anything. They are just some titles. We have to have some titles given to everyone. So we'll give some titles to people. That's how it had been looked at, and I'm sure even people who are holding those titles. They also think that, okay, it's just a title, I don't have to do anything. That's how. So it's purely part of the culture. Now, if you look at that point that you're talking about, this artifact dominant, this thing, and again, see, many of these things, because that's how we've been told, that's how we've been seeing it, that doesn't mean that that's how we need to practice moving forward. We can always change it. So when you really think about it, in my opinion, actually, I mean, I want other brethren also to speak about this. Everything emanates from the 3 tenets of Freemasonry, which always I keep repeating the same thing again and again, because I think it is about brotherly love, relief, and truth. So if you really believe in that, okay, the trust will always come. Okay, and if the trust is there, people will be accountable, and people will be dedicated. Now, there is a famous saying that a team is not a group of people who work together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. So now, if that trust is there, if you can really build that culture of trust, then dedication will be there, accountability will be there, and that's what we would like to that's how we want to change. Everyone should take accountability for the role that they are doing, and no one need to actually tell them, because they know. And even if someone is not able to do, we know that that person is not able to do, someone else will automatically go there and take up that particular role. No one need to tell them. can we change our culture to that sort of a scenario? Then everything will fall in place. We don't need really a okay, titles are there, the roles and responsibilities are there, but can we create a culture of trust, of dedication, of accountability, and binding it all together, the brotherly affection that we have for each other, and that's the key. So if that is there, everything will fall in place, and everything will work. That's what I feel. Now, I want to listen from other brethren. What are the, so let's not look at it only as a presentation. Let us look at it from the point of view of a lodge. What are the changes that we need to make within the lodge? What are things that we need to continue? What are things that we need to stop? Can we look at it from that perspective? Can I start with Worshipful Brother Madhav Nair? Brother Madhav, can you throw some points from your experience? You just finished your mastership, so I'm sure you'll have several experiences that are fresh in your mind.
Worshipful Master, you're catching me on a wrong foot right now. After a couple of single model.
That's the right time to catch you.
I will take it later if you permit.
Best time, best time.
Okay, so the floor is open. Whoever wants to take it up, please go ahead.
Worshipful Master, if I may.
Please go ahead, Brother Vimal.
My thinking is we depend too much on too many people. If I am not prepared for what I'm supposed to be doing, there will always be somebody who will show me what to do. Specifically with regard to our lodge, and specifically with regard to me, if you're expecting that from me, forget about it. If you're not prepared, too bad. Nobody's going to hang you. Look around, tell somebody who has an open book, but at least take the trouble to be prepared for what you're supposed to be doing. Let's be serious. We have known from the start, from the day we joined, that this is not a networking club. It requires some commitment in every aspect. Show some seriousness. At the same time, let's not be like old fuddy-duddies, especially at the banquet table. Let's have fun. But let's not, we cannot have all sorts of rights about roles and about ourselves without being willing to accept the responsibilities that go with it. Is, in brief, Worshipful Master, is my thinking. We can discuss
rightly
this
said,
in
Brother
greater
Vimal,
detail.
especially coming from the DOC, I can understand your frustrations when it comes to the ritual working. People are not prepared many a times coming in for the ritual working. So,
Thank you,
that's a fact. That's a fact. So I completely agree with what you're saying. So there are two parts to this. One is the ritual part, as Brother Venkat has put it. So that is all the technical aspects of this masonry. Then there is also an administrative part to it. There are many roles like secretary, treasurer, charity steward, mentor, orator, membership officer, stewards. These are the positions many a times becomes just a title, and the people don't even. I mean, we need to talk equally about that also. People don't really care what they are supposed to do, and many a times what happens is we don't know what they are supposed to do. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. It's important that we know what each of this title mean, and so that they can perform that role. So performing each one's role is very, very important. Anyone else would like to talk about this?
Worshipful Master, if I may.
Please go ahead, Brother Manji.
You see, when it comes to taking up offices, especially the officers doing their duties like the Worshipful Master, Senior Warden, Junior Warden, Senior Deacon, etc. in a guard, all these offices, I'm sorry to say, brethren start learning their offices when they come into the office. These offices, their roles should have been studied ahead of stepping into the office. You see, for example, one cannot say, okay, we'll start learning how to open and close a lodge when we are in the office. That should be ahead of time. That should be ahead of time. You see, when somebody is a junior deacon, he should be learning senior deacon's role. When somebody is a senior warden, he should be learning the master's role. And when somebody is a junior warden, he should be learning the senior warden's working. They should always be one step ahead. I mean, it's not right for people to start learning when they go into the office. They should be prepared for that office ahead of time. That's what I believe, and that's what.
Yeah.
Worshipful Master, with your permission.
Please go ahead.
It's very easy. It does not involve much effort. You don't have to do much. Just pay attention to what is happening in the lodge. Watch what the other guys are doing. And when you reach that position, don't just read the black parts in the ritual book. That is wrong. Because the ritual is something that you're supposed to be doing, and that is written in red. The black is only the dialogue. So just pay some attention. It's not difficult at all. Believe me, I'm a dud.
Yeah. So I agree with what you're saying, and I completely understand what Brother Vimal is saying. Again, let me reiterate one point. Many a times, I don't know whether it's the right thing I'm saying. Probably you may have different opinions about this. When it comes to the lodge function, the mostly the importance is mostly given to ritual working. But my point is again, I mean, I want to come back to the same point. Ritual working, I agree that it's very important. We have to do an impeccable ritual working, and if we do, by heart the rituals and do it perfectly well, it will look very nice, and everyone will be impressed. That's one part of it. Okay, but there is more to it than just ritual working. Okay, are we doing that part? And that's the administrative part. Are we doing that part well? That's the fundamental question. Otherwise we will become just showmen. Are we just showmen, or are we living the principles of Freemasonry? That's my fundamental question. Okay, doing the ritual working is fine. I mean, actually, we can give a training session. I mean, we can probably conduct a training session for everyone, which I would like to do this year, and I would like to do proper ritual working, and so that we can call visiting brethren and show it to them. So it's more of a performance when we do the rituals perfectly. But are we living the principles? Are we living the tenets of Freemasonry?
Worshipful Master.
Please.
If we do the one well, it will lead us to doing the other equally well. This is my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, if it happens, it'll be good.
I'm sure it will. Yeah. Let's at least try and get through one.
Let's hear from some of the junior brethren.
Yes,
also.
And it need not necessarily about our lodge alone. We are concerned about Freemasonry in general.
Yeah. So the only thing is, Bimal, most of the time people are interested in the performance part because that's what people see, and everyone wants to show off that, okay, my lodge is doing pretty well. Look at the rituals, the way we are doing the rituals, and everyone is happy about it, and there is nothing wrong with that. But I think Masonry is much beyond that. I would like to listen from some of the junior brethren. What are your views? I mean, you would have attended the lodge for the last 1 year or 2 years now. So what do you think about it?
Worshipful Master, please name the brethren that you would like to.
Worshipful Master, I would also like. Would you like to? I would also like a brethren like Paul Harris to share their perspectives. Getting an external
that'd be great.
Would be more
Brother
valuable
Paul, we would really like to hear your views, because you are coming from another part of the globe, and we don't know how things work out there. So it will be very interesting to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I'm willing to chip in. There are some people who are excellent ritualists. There are some people who, no matter what they do, will probably never be excellent ritualists. It's horses for courses. There are some people who are extremely good at administration. And there are some who will be a very good treasurer for the lodge. There are some who will be a very good mentor or almoner. You just have to make the most of what people can do. So if people are going through the ceremonies and they are doing ritual, they won't all be good. Some will, some won't, but you can support them through it and you can help them progress. When it comes to the other jobs outside, you have to pick the right people and you have to help them to do what it is they've got to do. If you want someone to be an almoner, he has to understand what the role of the almoner is. He has to understand what the role of the charity steward is. And he needs support and encouragement. Now, I'm quite interested in the concept at Grand Lodge that the Grand Secretary has become the CEO. That is quite an important change. And I think in some lodges, we have the same situation. The Secretary is effectively the CEO, not the worshipful master. The Secretary is the person who is actually running and organising all the administration side of things. The DC does the ritual and make sure all the people know their roles and responsibilities. The Secretary does exactly the same on the administration side. So you have to find the right people to do the right jobs and help encourage everyone to make their commitment and do their part. And I'm really pleased to see that you, John, are actually making an effort to get everybody to do that. Because I think this is an excellent way of opening it up and getting people to talk about what it is that they are supposed to be doing, what they need help with. And it was a really good presentation because it brought all the management side of things into Masonry, and we sometimes don't look at that. So it was a really good opportunity for people to sit and think about the thing and analyse the roles. So I'll keep quiet and let some of your people put their own input in, but it's most enjoyable. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely, Paul. I mean, I completely agree with what Brother Paul has said. There are some who are very good ritualists. Okay, they are very good in mugging up clients, and putting pressure on someone who is not that good in learning the complete racing board. I mean, okay, we can do that. We can encourage them to do it, but there is a limit to which we can do that also. But more than that, people's dedication come out in different ways. It's not just through mugging up passages. So and the accountability that they take, the dedication that they show for the Lodge, the affection that they show for different brethren, the way they take care of others. So there are many ways in which we will all contribute. So we should encourage people in what they are good at, and that's the most critical part. Again, I will open to any of the younger brethren. Brother Ankit, would you like to say something?
Worshipful Master, thank you for the opportunity to let me speak. First of all, I would like to commend very worshipful Brother Venkataraman for a very good presentation. As usual, he's kept it crisp and points have been highlighted exceedingly well. There are a couple of points that I would like to make. First of all, I like the differentiation that is brought out in the terms of espoused values versus the enacted values. And I feel, for example, when we say that we, as an organization, as Freemasonry, we make that our vision or our mission is to make a good man better. That is our espoused value. Now, the enacted values that is how we interact with each other in the lodge. What we do outside the lodge have to make us better men. Right now, the other important thing that is being spoken about is tracking and monitoring. Are we really monitoring, or are we really tracking whether the man who joined the lodge and the man who's, say, now been in the lodge for 3 or 4 years, has he become a better man? Is there a way to really track it tangibly? I think that is a point that we need to ask ourselves. I'm not very sure whether you can really end up tracking it or not. Look, happiness as an indicator can be tracked. We have happiness indicators today for countries. I'm not so sure how to track happiness, but I know it can be done. So I'm not sure whether becoming a better man can be tracked or not. But I think we can probably see, or maybe the HR brethren in our organization can help us to get metrics for that, perhaps. I don't know. So I think that is an important point that we can try to have as a compass in our lives, not only in when we come to God, in our life. Are we becoming better men every day, better man today than the last research indicated?
Sure. Thank you, Brother Angud, for your views, and those views were very, very important. Brother Manoj, we'd like to hear from you as well. Brother Manoj, you're there, right?
Yeah, Vashul Master, thank you. Thanks a lot for giving me a chance to speak. And it was a wonderful eye-opener presentation by very worshipful brother Venkat. And you know, first of all, this is a very very complex topic that you know, very worshipful brother Venkat has you know, put us you know, through. The thing is, you know, it is actually, I felt that one presentation is not enough to solve this entire quagmire of, you know, it's like a very complex, you know, thing. I really felt that, you know, there are, this can be a series of presentation to be brought in. But I, from the entire, you know, the conversation and the presentation, I could feel one thing is that, yes, the technicalities, yes, in one point, it is very important. And where I really, you know, second what Vashu brother, you know, Manji told, is that we need to actually advance to the next level. What we are looking at for the next level. If you're a IG, you know, look at what the JD is doing, junior deacon is doing, junior deacon, you know, what the senior deacon is doing. So then we get prepared. So once that is prepared, and observation, exactly what has been told by you know, brother Bhiman, that is, you know, observe what is happening in the temple. And these two factors are you know, very much needed for inciting interest into you know, into the entire thing. And and thirdly is that, okay, you know, these things should make how you know, a good man better by emulating that into our you know, on our daily life. So this is what I could put forward, you know, Vashul Master.
Sure, Brother Manoj. Good points you raised. Fortunately, we have a seasoned HR professional among us, Brother Sushil Chanda. And I'm sure many of these topics, what Brother Venkat talked about today, is very close to his hearts. You know, and I'm sure he will have a lot of points to add. And we are very eager to listen to Brother Sushil.
So I think this is this is a meeting supposed to be for masonry in general, but it has kind of digressed into Silver Dawn in particular. I think we can have more such meetings to firm up what
Brother Sushil, while we might have talked about you know, Silvery Dawn, because we know Silvery Dawn better. But I'm sure, I mean, this is the same case with all the lodges. So the functioning of most of the lodges are very, very similar. Probably we are relatively better.
Okay, I thought we are better because we had a special slide on Silvery Dawn. Just joking. I think similar points and very pertinent points were raised by Brother Vishwa in his presentation. One of the things which you also pointed out about rituals. My thing is that to each his own. Some people are good ritualists, some are not. But what we have to remember is we have to be inclusive. Whether you're good or not, whatever, you are a family brother, and that's what counts. I mean, we would hide your, I mean, errors and shortcomings, and would highlight what you're good at. I think the town hall idea proposed by Brother Venkat is a good idea. I think we should at least have a SurveyMonkey link or a link sent out. There are several questions I have just written down while talking, listening to all, about 2 pages of questions which I have, but I would not want to waste time here. There are very basic questions. There are some which are a bit more evolved ones, but unless we put some thought to it, we would not come to the answers, and we would maybe we rehash this kind of a meeting again and again. And that is I'm scared of that we may just get into that kind of a rut, and we may want to break that.
Brother Sushil, that must be a yellow diary you're talking about.
नहीं वो और भी लिखता हूँ ठीक yellow diary नहीं है, there are other things also. Okay, so there are, I think if we do some of those things, we can start off with what should we do with the new brother, and Brother Vimal was talking about people should know and observe. Let me tell you frankly, first few months just go in bewilderment for a newcomer who comes in. So if he's not handheld and if there is no strong support to him, he is like fish out of water. I mean, of course, now that and because I've experienced it myself, and I've kind of seen the changes happen in me when I got into this WhatsApp group, that itself made a big change in me. So you feel more included. So what I'm saying is, I mean, we can do this a bit more structured way by collating what the thoughts are. We spoke about how can we do better. So 360, some more transparency. What are people thinking? For instance, there is a permanent committee or something. I don't even know who all are there in that permanent committee. I would just give you another example. I just happened to see something put in by Brother Manji a few days back about a 2023 plan. I remember him speaking about it some 2 years back. After that, I have lost track of it. And this came to this was a good recall. So something like this, if we are wanting to drive, maybe these kind of online meetings are better to take this offline kind of issues. We could have a presentation on that so that all of us know that, okay, these are also the things that we are doing. Can we put some focus to that? So otherwise, these things kind of come and go, and we are not, we do not know much about them. So I think if you do some of these things, and I'm happy to contribute there. And
sure.
This culture change that we are talking about.
Sure, Brother Sushil. See, the point is, we have a regular meetings where we conduct our regular business of the lodge. The reason why we decided that we'll continue with this third Saturday meeting, the virtual meeting. This is not the regular meeting of the lodge. This is an opportunity for us to talk multiple things. When something like this can be discussed, which is more internal and how we can improve ourselves. Okay, we can talk about some research subjects, more esoteric topics. Okay, we can talk about creating awareness about masonry in general among the brethren as well as outside for the outside public. So otherwise, in a normal lodge meeting, we don't get opportunities like this. And that is a very reason why we thought that we should have something like this. And in a normal meeting, you know very well that we don't discuss these sort of subjects. It'll be more of lodge topics that we.
Yes, Virtual Brother Venkat also pointed out. Actually, there is hardly any time for any conversation. You're so pressed for time. It happens on a weekday. You rush from office, do your stuff, try to get out because you have a long day tomorrow as well, the next day as well. So
yeah, so I think this will also help us to figure out what need to be changed, what need to be continued, what need to be sustained. All this will come out, and even the United Grand Lodge of England is making a lot of changes. Towards that, and we should actually follow suit and see how we can improve the whole the brotherhood, the whole experience within the lodge. So as Brother Vishwamohan was pointing out some time back, the whole objective is making whole masonry and the meetings more enjoyable. So if we have to make it really enjoyable, then we have to focus on all these different aspects of it.
Right. Right. I think we should all thank COVID, and I always this is one of the things that I like saying, that if COVID does not change the way the world has been working and living so long, then I would say COVID has actually failed to do what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to change people. So if it is not,
Master.
Sure, please, Brother Vimal.
Worshipful brother Vishwamohan has been very quiet. Can we hear something from
Sure.
Okay. My first comment, Pastor Master, my first comment is about, I think we had a very good presentation from very worshipful Brother Venkatraman. The gist of the presentation and my uptake on the presentation is that, we need to have some metrics, performance metrics built into every role so that that can be evaluated. I think it's a good idea from an organization perspective because an organization roles have to be performed. And in an organization, if somebody does not perform a role, he can be shown the door. But, we are a completely different kind of organization. If we have performance metrics and somebody fails that performance metric, are we going to show them the door?
We are not.
No. So therefore, I'm saying placing perform. I think, while I fully appreciate what Brother Venkatraman has said, and I subscribe to the view as well. We have to be careful because this is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gives people direction. On the other hand, what if they fail? Then do they fall from our favor? We are not an organization like that, so we have to be extremely careful about the performance metrics. But but what is important is that what you said, the basic philosophy of the organization, or the interpretation of the culture of the organization is brotherly love, relief, and truth, right? Truth is about being honest, right? That's fine. Relief is about providing help. Brotherly love is about feeling for each other. The brotherly love and relief, I think, has to be demonstrated far more. And the roles like of orator, mentor, almoner, all these
Worshipful
go towards that.
Worshipful brother Vishwa, please excuse me a minute. Brethren, can I request you to keep your microphones off, please? There is something playing in the background which is coming on to what we are talking about. So let us please give worshipful brother Vishwamohan plenty of time and plenty of opportunity and a clear line to say what he's saying. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if I have to repeat myself on what I've said, but
no, you are audible. You are audible. You can continue.
Fine. So my point of view is only that. We have to be I think it's a very thought-provoking presentation. Should we apply the tenets of running an organization to running a lodge, right? Is it the same? Because in an organization we can dispense with people. In a lodge, can we dispense with people? We can identify performers, non-performers in an organization. Can we do so in a lodge? Because we are supposed to be like, I think, Brother Sushil mentioned it. I think I understood when Sushil said that, inclusivity is the most important thing in our lodge. He felt inclusive only because he could attend the online meetings. Otherwise, he felt that he was not even being part of it. Right? Maybe the online meetings gave an opportunity for people to be part of something. Now, I think there are some, if you go back into this presentation, if you go back into what people have said, I think there are, multiple dimensions that we need to look into, understand that, because, I think, while on one hand, I would think that, every principle of an organization can be adapted to a lodge. At the same time, is that the most desirable thing to do? Because what an organization will do to an employee is different from what a lodge will do to its brother, right? So therefore, like you yourself said that, sometimes a person may not necessarily perform the role that he is, being put into, right? But does that mean that he's bad at it? Now you're saying that, we also say that, look, performing a ritual is very important. Is delivering a tracing board lecture of the second degree more important than understanding of that lecture? Which is more important? I think the understanding of the lecture is far more important than delivery.
Absolutely.
The person who delivers may have an impact, but that's a different thing, right? That's possibly a personal, achievement that a person may, view as. But what is more important than that is how many of us have understood the second degree, tracing board? Okay, how many of us have understood the Grand Lodge certificate, lecture? I think, in our own lodge, our focus has been on delivery of ritual. How much of emphasis has been placed on understanding of these rituals? Okay, because I think, I think somewhere Virtual Brother Venkatraman may have, has not been doing something that he used to do earlier. Which I remember very well. One of the things that he said was, to me, when in my early days in the lodge, am I taking too much time, Virtual Master?
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, was that, he explained to me why there is a senior warden, why there is a junior warden, and why there is a worshipful master, and how he said that during earlier times, there were 3 separate lodges, right? And that must have been how the thing functioned, because you had one, basic entered apprentices, group of entered apprentices, you had a group of craftsmen, you had a group of master masons, and each of them needed to be managed separately, right? But then you brought them all into the lodge, and then, you have every perambulation is the fact that, look, you're going and knocking on a lodge and taking permission to say that, look, can this person be admitted, or can this person be passed, right? There is so much more meaning into each of our rituals, which I think we have stopped discussing.
Yes.
I think, I think we should place more emphasis, not on delivery of, the ritual, but on the understanding of the ritual. How many times after delivery of a ritual, let us say, after we delivered, the working tools of, of the 3rd degree, how many times have we gone back and asked our own brethren, how much have you understood of this? What have you understood of this? I think, we should have a lecture on just the 3rd degree and ask each person, to interpret 3rd degree working tools from his own perspective. I'm telling you, you'll have, as many brethren, you'll have as many perspectives.
True, very true.
Right. And I think, the sum of all these perspectives is the culture of a lodge.
Yes.
So, yes. I think, there is a certain different direction that we need to take. In my understanding is that. My understanding is not that, performance metrics, while is important. Everybody needs to know that, look, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? And I do whatever is best possible within my capabilities. More important than that is that how much have we understood of what we are doing? Why should an almoner go and do something like this? Why is it important? What are the circumstances, from our own past, what are the circumstances that make an almoner's role more important? So that this person starts believing that, look, he's got a very important job to do.
Very, very, very valid point,
right?
Vishwa.
So with that, Virtual Master, may I submit that I've finished. And I've taken too long. Please pardon me.
Not at all, not at all. Actually, you raised very, very valid points, and it was very useful, and thank you for that. And I think we can quickly have a response before I leave it to Brother Venkat for his last words for today. We are already approaching 9:30. So,
Worshipful Master.
Yeah, Brother Bimal.
As your director of ceremonies, I request the second last.
Sure, please go ahead, Brother Vimal.
Is this the second last word?
Yes.
Okay. Just ask.
Unless the mother also would like to say something.
We have a lot of visiting. We have a lot of visiting brethren.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Any of the visiting brethren have any particular points to
we are still
about, you may please.
And we are still waiting on Worshipful Brother Madhav.
Worshipful Brother Madhav is on mute.
Worshipful Master, I speak a lot, you know that.
So it's okay. We are eager to listen to you. I can extend the meeting for another 10 minutes if you speak.
No, I would not take that much of time. Yeah. But I think a very interesting presentation. Some correlations, of course, we can draw from our corporate lives. We have all worked, at least I can say for myself, this is my 26th year in banking, and I can correlate what these positions mean and all that stuff. My limited point here is that, if I look at lodges down south, which I consider as slightly more active, one of the things which I have noticed there is that a person cannot become a master unless he has already become a treasurer and secretary. And that is something which I'm still that old school, and I believe in that no position should be held by anyone for more than 2 years consecutively. I think there has to be changes for a vibrant lodge. We have to encourage people to take on positions. And a master, when he takes on the position of a master, he should be well versed, not just on the ritual part of it, which has been emphasized, but also on the administrative matters. I do not know of any of the recent masters who have read any of the books which we have, the Book of Constitutions or even the Lodge book or even the Blue book. I don't know. Definitely not me. And I can sort of say that I think some of my predecessors have also not read. So going forward, in case we are to be seen as a vibrant lodge, we should make it a practice that the master should have become a treasurer and a secretary before he takes on that. And I have seen that work very well down south. Unfortunately for us, we do not have that much of a membership strength. Second, we are also not willing to take on some of the responsibilities. So, because we are not able to take on responsibilities, these roles are restricted to people who take that initiative. So nothing to take away from them, but I think it's something which we'll have to inculcate in the younger brethren. So brethren like Ankit Chawla or Manoj or Samir who have joined in, they should be taken through all these seats before they become a master. It might take a year or two more, but then when they become masters, they are in perfect position to rule the lodge as a master, rather than becoming, someone who doesn't know. It's like a CEO who doesn't know his business and is completely dependent on his second in command to run the show for him. And we have seen that those organizations don't thrive. So that's my limited point.
I think very important points, Worshipful Brother Madhav, and these points are duly noted, and we'll definitely work towards that. Let's see how we can. So I will also have a separate discussion with the mentor and see how we can prepare our younger brethren for bigger roles as we move forward.
Worshipful Master, maybe the visitors have something to say.
Yeah, please, the visitors, and also Worshipful Brother Rumi, if you have something to say, please. Worshipful Brother Rumi is there, or
Worshipful Brother Rumi has left. He has just
left, I think.
Oh,
he has
okay.
expressed
So,
his apology.
visitors, would you like to say something? Okay, great. Any of the visitors? Okay, so if there are no further comments from anyone, I would request Brother Venkat. Please.
Worshipful Master.
Please go ahead, Brother Ankit.
Worshipful Master, I would just like to say that we've not heard from Brother Niranjan at all. I believe he's still there, and also I think it's Brother Samir.
Yeah. So
this is his first.
We'll be happy to hear from you, Brother Niranjan and Brother Samir.
Yes, please.
And also from my ruling master from Lodge Square and Compass, he has taken time to join us. We should hear him out also.
Who's that?
Galaxy M51, but he's our ruling master.
Who's that?
Satish Darkar.
Oh, okay. I can't see his name here, so that's why I couldn't.
Worshipful Brother Satish is also very, very senior Mason. And he's
Brother Satish, would you like to add some points from your experience, from your lodge to it? I don't know whether your experiences are similar in your lodge, but I assume that most of the lodges function in a similar fashion. So,
yeah, I just want to say that, Worshipful Master, that I am from Lodge Square and Compass, and we also facing the problem of strength. Many a times there is no quorum at such, and we have to wait for people to come, because Mumbai is such that the traveling is a killing. Like I come from Mulund, so I have to travel 1 hour, 1.5 hours by train, or waiting for train, and all that things are there. And I agree with worshipful brother Vishwamohan that the lodge is not like a corporate body. So lodge is a different, like brotherhood is there. So the human touch and all the mentoring and all the discussion should be there. That's it. That is my limited point.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Thanks a lot for giving
Brother Niranjan, would you like to add something quickly?
No, nothing, brother. Actually, I'm extremely sorry I couldn't concentrate on the meeting because our society meeting was also going on at the same time.
Okay.
I was, so I'm extremely sorry I couldn't.
Yeah. So, brother Samir, would you like to say something?
Yes, I'll just add a few words because I'm relatively new and I understand
that, yeah.
of the meeting also. But it has been a fantastic presentation by very worshipful brother Venkat, and though it shows a lot of corporate, face of it, we also need to also see the brotherhood face of the laws that which made me also come forth after so many years that joining another organization. We are joining an organization which preaches faith, love for humanity, basically. So if we turn that also into a corporate entity, then I think it's going to be a little tough. So my point of view is we have to have the mix of both and balance it so that everything moves smoothly, not only one part of it. That's all.
Thank you. Good point of view. So
Can
over to you, brother.
Master, before you close, I would like to say something in common for everybody.
Yeah, please. I'm over to you.
What do you mean?
Worshipful Master, you promised me the second last word.
No. I mean, I think I'll leave it to brother Venkat to close. I mean, say his last words, and then we will wind up.
No.
Let Vimal say. Let Vimal say what he wants to say. Yeah.
Okay, brother Vimal, go ahead.
In line with our theme for today about corporate business in masonry. In corporates, it is generally believed that a corporation is like a large tree with a lot of monkeys on top of it. The ones at the top think they have only monkeys below them. And the ones at the bottom think they have only assholes above them. Pardon the language. Over to you, Venkat.
Okay. So there were two streams of discussions. One stream of discussion went back to the technical services and talked about how to do the rituals, how to do it well. The junior deacon must look at the senior deacon's role and so on and so forth. So all that was around technical services. To me, it proved my point that much of the conversation in a lodge is around technical services and not around support services. Okay, and remember those two columns of services that I drew. Okay, so we again weird where in a meeting where we wanted to have a change of culture, the discussion stuck to the same thing, and it again brought out my point that it takes about 8 years to change the culture, and in masonry it will be not 8 but 80 years probably to change the culture. We again went back to technical services. We seem to be talking only about technical services. Even in a meeting that is about administrative and support services, we go back to talking about technical services because that is our zone of comfort. Okay, point number one. Second is that the principles of organization management remain the principles. How they apply to different organizations vary from organization to organization. In a certain commercial organization, if a person does not meet the deliverables, he will be fired, as Vishwa wanted to stress. Okay, and that is rightfully so because that organization requires that action. Is that action to be replicated in another organization, which may be a Catholic church, or maybe the NASA, mission to Mars, or maybe an army? It may not be so. You may not have to fire somebody and throw him out, and there may be a different way of evaluating and recognizing or rewarding and doing R&R. So it doesn't mean that because we use the word organization management, all the ethics and values of a commercial organization, a business organization, a for-profit organization have to come into Masonry. No, that is not my talk. That is not what I meant. I meant that the principles remain the same. How do you apply them will vary from case to case of what is the business of the organization. The business of an army is to fight wars. The business of a Catholic church is to promote Christianity and make good people Christians. The business of the NASA Mars mission is to land a rocket on the Mars. Okay, the principles remain the same. The mission differs, and therefore the application of the mission principles will differ. And again, with all due respect to Vishwa, I have never implied that the commercial aspect of organization management, which we see in our day-to-day lives, because we're all, in trade and commerce, is not what I meant should be applied to the lodge. Over to you, Vishwa Master.
Sure. Okay. I think that clarifies the point. But I think today's discussion is very important and much needed because these are the points that we never get to discuss otherwise. Okay, and I'm happy that we could discuss this in the first meeting itself. And moving forward, we will not be probably talking about such subjects, and definitely there'll be feedback sessions. And because I believe in taking feedbacks, and we need to see whether we are moving the right direction or not. So that will definitely be there. But maybe we will decide on the next topic and come back to maybe that could be a totally different topic, could be a more esoteric topic, or maybe something more to do with awareness or something about the degrees. We will see what will come up in the next meeting. But thank you so much, and all the visitors also. We're very happy that you're here. Brother Paul, thank you so much for staying and joining and staying throughout the meeting and participating in the meeting itself, and all the other visitors. I don't know who all are there now, but Brother Satish is there. Who else? I think others have left already, but they were also there for most of the time. So thank you so much. So again, till we meet again for the next regular meeting, and after that, we'll continue with the virtual meetings as well.
Thank you, Worshipful Master.
Thank you. So with that, we will close.
Thank you, Worshipful Master. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for a great meeting.
And thank you, very worshipful brother Venkat.
And very worshipful brother Venkat. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Worshipful Master. Thank you for the opportunity to present my thought.
Yeah.
Bye. Good night.
Good night. Yeah.
Thank you. Good night,
everybody. Good night.